go live. There's no open.
Yeah. What is
From the Momo Pizzeria and Ristorante Studios, we are the voice of Lincoln. KLIN Lincoln. KDDK HD3 Lincoln. K257GN Lincoln is 1499.3 KLIN.
Is that not playing?
Here we go. I guess you have to fire it all manually, which you never told me.
Welcome to the best recap of Husker Sports. Husker Rewind with your hosts Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome to the circus.
Steps, throws down the field, the pass. He's intercepted. Picked off by Sierra Wright to the 30, 25, 20. Sierra down the near sideline, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown, Nebraska. Sierra Wright with a pick six for Nebraska.
Here comes the serve. Straight ahead, past Schumacher. Set in the middle, Schmeck out of bounds. We're done. Huskers win. Call it, grandkids. Nebraska sweeps Wisconsin on the road, no less.
And for the first time in 41 years, Nebraska knocks off the top-ranked team in the country, and they are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. Love it. Sign your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
Breaking ball, that's looped in left field. Gabe Swanson is there. He squeezes it, and your Huskers are Big Ten champions. After losing game one Tuesday night, they come back and win 5 straight and capture the Big Ten tournament for the first time since joining the league. And the dog pile is ongoing in front of the plate.
Now, here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
Welcome in, Husker Rewind, every Sunday, 5 to 7, with Mike Melby, my co-host, Tom Stevens, right here.
Yo.
A mixed bag weekend for Nebraska sports. Nebraska volleyball wins their second Big Ten championship, the first time they've ever gone back-to-back in the Big Ten, so that was good. What happened on Friday, the blackest of Fridays, not so much, 13-10. Nebraska falls to Iowa again, and another walk-off field goal. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. The sadness will be there when we get to it. But right now, happiness, Mike Melby, as Nebraska beats North Florida 103-72. The highest scoring game for Nebraska basketball in a long time since they lost to North Carolina State in a 4-overtime thriller a while back. But Nebraska basketball off to a 6-1 start.
Yeah, December 1st, 2021, they lose 104-100 in 4 overtimes to NC State. Game was tied at 70 after regulation. And the last time Nebraska scored over 100 in regulation in a regular season game against Doane, which somehow counted as a regular season game, and Delano Banton with a triple-double in that game.
Well, in this one,
that was December 15th, 2020.
Connor Esigian was the star in this one. He gets 22. He was in the starting lineup because Berke Buchtengel did not play due to a groin injury, but he was fantastic. He was 8 of 10 from the field, 6 of 8 from 3. You might think about putting him in the starting lineup, but he wasn't the only star. Juwan Gary had a great day with 18. Bryce Williams was Bryce Williams, 6 of 11 from the floor and 17 points. Nebraska shoots 45% from 3, 58% from 2-point land. As we welcome in Andy Markowski, former Husker star, captain back in the Danny Nee era. Hi, how are you?
Doing great, fellas.
That was pretty good basketball by our Huskers today. I mean, that was as well as I've seen them play in a while.
Yeah, certainly. I thought the first 8 to 10 minutes was really good. They were locked in against the quality North Florida. I know North Florida doesn't have a great name, but they went on the road, won at South Carolina, and hung 103 at Georgia Tech. So with 2 Power 5 wins, I know Coach Hoiberg and Nate Linzer were a little nervous about this game coming off a big week last week with 2 road games. So, but certainly, offensively, last 2 games scoring over 90 and then over 100 today, it's a positive sign.
Andy, as a former player, walk me through the 2 guys that were brought in to be sharpshooters, Connor Esigian and Gavin Griffiths. because both of them are having kind of polar opposite seasons through the opening 7 games for Nebraska. How did Connor Esigian get out of that mindset after going 0 in the exhibition game, while Gavin Griffiths, I think, hit 4 3-pointers, and where they're at today? Walk me through what each one needs to do mentally to continue and to get out of the shooting slump.
Yeah, at first, I think both are at very different spots of their career. Griffiths was a kind of a role player at Rutgers a year ago as a freshman. Esigian had a record-setting freshman year, 2 years ago at Wisconsin, and then, struggled through last year a little bit, and is now in his 3rd year. So certainly I think they're at a different stage of their career. Esigian is a little bit more experienced to probably handle, some of the highs and the lows that can go on, during a college season. But, give Coach Hoiberg credit. I think he's finding, creative ways to get Esigian open. If you go back to the Creighton game, Creighton really was not going to let him get threes off, and Esigian did a nice job of kind of curling and scoring a bunch of mid-range, getting to the free throw line. And then obviously the last 2 games with South Dakota and North Florida, they just didn't locate him and had a lot of open looks and, playing with tremendous confidence. But, Griffiths, I think, has a chance to be a good player, a little longer, probably not, an elite 2-guard shooter. That I don't think that's ever been his reputation, even though he is a very capable, shot maker. But his length, activity on the defensive end, rebounding, versatility, I think those things will continually grow and improve for Gavin as he gets a little stronger and gets a little bit more comfortable in Fred's system.
Former Husker captain and basketball star for Nebraska back in the Danny Nee era, Andy Markowski, our guest. Obviously, you had the 2 stars coming into this season, Jawan Gary and Bryce Williams. And we didn't know what else we were going to get. You had so many transfers with Braxton Mia and Connor Esigian and Raleigh Worcester. How would you compare this team to last year's team that made the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think both teams are very different. Last year's team, really played without a point guard. Marcus Lawrence, I felt, had to play out of position for a lot of the first part of the season. And then Fred started leaning on Enrique Mast a little bit to kind of run offense through at the 5, which is a little unconventional, but Coach Hoiberg is so creative with what he can do on the offensive end. And then really late in the year, they kind of went to Bryce Williams at the point guard. This year's team, I think, has a couple true point guards in Worcester and Ulis that are both 5th-year guys, have played a lot of college basketball. This group is probably more versatile. They played small today with Gary at the 4. But if you go back to like the Creighton game, they were able to play, Buchengel at 6'11", and then obviously Mia or Morgan at 6'10" and 7'1". They really can play big and almost move Williams to the 2 at 6'7". So I think this group is a little bit longer, more versatile. I don't know if this group shoots it as well, even though the last 2 games they have up to this point, they really had struggled making the 3, but hopefully, with the season getting going, sometimes that could be contagious. But I think both groups are a little different, but I do think the portal has been a real asset for Coach Hoiberg, because he has a system and he can go and look in the portal and really find kids that fits what he wants to do. And I think that has translated really well the last 2 years.
Andy Markowski joining us on the Hunt Irrigation Talk and Text line. Andy, we've got 5 days off before one of the most fun atmospheres for, I believe, anybody to go play in the Breslin Center up in East Lansing against Tom Izzo and Michigan State. 5 days of prep work here. What does Coach Hoiberg do with that time?
Yeah, certainly you have to get ready for Michigan State. So there'll be a day or two that is prep, but it's still really early in the year where they're still trying to get some things installed. I thought the jump this team made from the St. Mary's loss, which, they did not do a great job with ball screen defense, and then, come back to Creighton, less than a week later. So there's a lot of work on yourself during this stretch. Certainly, a day of recovery probably tomorrow. And then, I think the Big Ten gave us 2 of the, projected top 5 teams in the league, right? So you're at Michigan State, then you come home and you have Indiana, which, is immensely talented. So, the next week to 10 days is going to be a challenge, but it's still really early in the season where I think this team still can grow. And there's still a lot of offensive install that I know Coach Harvard doesn't have in yet. Look for him to probably add a couple things with that much prep time.
I know Indiana is a ranked team. Michigan State has already beaten North Carolina. Do you go as a coach thinking, let's just go 1-1, or do you truly take it one at a time?
Yeah, if you ask coaches, they're going to tell you take it one at a time. But, as they map out, anybody that gets the league schedule, you're kind of peeking at it going, okay, what's our toughest 3-game stretch? Where do we need to split? Certainly winning, when you play a 20-game league schedule and you're trying to get to the tournament, you have to win at home, right? So, to win at Michigan State would be hard to say that's a winnable game, even though you're going into it expecting to be competitive and have a chance to win. So, I think they're going to take it one game at a time. But in reality, if you ask Coach Hoiberg and the staff if they were to split with those two teams, I think they would take that. And, to be honest, I think they're catching both at a good time. Michigan State, as everyone knows, as those teams get better as the year goes on. Indiana has, 6 new pieces that they're trying to blend in. I think they really struggled in one of the the preseason holiday tournaments here last week. So, having a chance to catch both of those early in the year could be a positive.
How many more games do you feel like you're going to know what this team is? Is it, because you've got Michigan State, you've got Indiana, then you've got Murray State, Southern. Are you going to need to know maybe 10 more games into the Big Ten schedule? Are you going to need, what are you going to know about this team, you think?
Well, Bear K, Buetengel, I think is a really critical piece of this. If you look at Morgan and Braxton Mia, neither of those at the 5, could really pass and run offense the way Coach Hoiberg likes to run offense. If you go back to Derek Walker at the 5 and then Rink Mast, Bear K gives Fred the ability to do that late games. Creighton, they ended up playing big, but there's going to be some games that Buetengel has to play the 5. So that injury could linger. I'm not sure. I haven't heard a timetable, but certainly that is a critical piece to, I think, the ceiling of this team. I don't know what the finished product of this group is. I certainly think St. Mary's is a really, really quality team. Veteran kids, tough. I think they beat USC by 31 the other night. That team's going to win a lot of games. And then, obviously Creighton is a terrific program. So I think we have a good team. I don't know if the consistency is going to be there, night to night, week to week, which, that maybe they could go on a 2 or 3 game losing streak. But hopefully they have enough maturity with Williams and Gary and Worcester and Euless and, be able to manage through that. So, I certainly think that the Hawaii tournament is not loaded in teams. So if you happen to drop a couple Big Ten games, I think you can get healthy, going into that tournament with teams that you're better than.
Yeah, I think Kent asked him that question about Buetengel, and I think he said he didn't know for Saturday against Michigan State. Doesn't sound like it's a long-term injury, but he could be missing when Nebraska takes on Michigan State on Saturday. Andy Markowski, former Husker star, we appreciate the time. Hope to have you back sometime this season.
Anytime, fellas.
There you go.
Thanks, Andy.
Andy Markowski, former Husker captain under Danny Nee, really good basketball player, and his daughter is not bad either.
Yeah, she's pretty damn good.
She might be a little better than Andy, and Andy was really good. Boy, that was fun to watch today. 103 points, and it feels like back-to-back games into the 90s, and then they break the 100 mark, the most they've had since, as you mentioned, the North Carolina State game. And that's been a few years ago. What year? It was
December 1st, 2020, and then December 14th or 17th, 2021 was the North Carolina State game, and then
that was 4 overtimes, right?
Yeah, that was 4 overtimes.
Yeah,
but it was mid-December of 2020 when they beat Doane 103 to like 65.
That doesn't count.
Delano Banton.
I mean, North Florida was a legitimate good team.
Oh yeah, North Florida. I'll be honest, a team like that's one of those that sneaks in as a, they win their conference tournament and they're a 14 seed and they've got the 3 seed really nervous, like Xavier, Nebraska back in 1990-91, where you had a Xavier team that could just nail the 3 and that's all they did all game long. And Nebraska had no answer.
This is a better
defensive team, I think, than last year's team.
where you had some liabilities. Let's face it, Casey, as good as he was offensively, was not the best defender in the world.
Yeah.
He was a great three-point shooter. He was really good around the rim. He was obviously a very good free throw shooter. It's a great free throw shooter. But this team is much better defensively. They held another team, and I think you're going to see this all season long. North Florida shot 38% from the field, 32%. They took 43 threes.
Yep.
14 of 43 from three. But Nebraska is a consistent defensive team, but they can go big. They can go small. I thought it was good to see Cale Jacobson get a lot of the playing time because Burke wasn't available today. They can go with a defensive lineup. They can go with an offensive lineup. They can go big. They can go small. Braxton Mia, I thought he was going to be a liability offensively, but I love the lob plays that they run for him.
Let him do what he does.
Yeah,
Just let him go in and play defense.
Get a couple of dunks in games, and he's made a couple free throws as of late. I just think that this team, obviously you have your superstars in Jawan Gary and Bryce Williams, and I thought you really need three guys. And Asijan has stepped up to be that third guy.
Well, and I'll be honest with you. To me, Burke Buchtengel is a guy that
he's your
fits that the point of a fourth.
Do you think about taking Mia out and when Burke comes back, Mia out of the lineup and Asijan in?
No.
Because of what he offers off the bench.
Well, just regardless, I don't think guys are as caught up with starting
as finishing.
And the thing, obviously, we just got done with Nebraska basketball. Andy Markowski on. One thing I do want to mention, kind of breaking news. It's about 15 minutes old now. University of Nebraska volleyball team will be the number 2 overall national seed. Pitt was number 1. And somehow Louisville wound up the 4 seed over Stanford after they lost to Stanford yesterday.
Wow.
But RPI-wise, Louisville is just a tick above regardless. So Danny Busboom is going to
Pitt until deep into the tournament. So that really does.
Oh, they're the 1-2 seed. They're set up on opposite sides of the bracket.
Yeah,
so,
you're fine.
But it would be Danny Busboom in the Final Four if the ones hold serve.
Yeah.
Versus John Cook. Or no, never mind. No, it wouldn't.
As long as we're talking a little Husker volleyball, back-to-back Big Ten titles. At one time, I know John Cook had said winning a Big Ten title is harder than winning a national title. I don't know if I believe that because there are teams like Pitt and Texas out there. But to do it 2 years in a row, I know this one is a shared Big Ten title with Penn State. They lost to Penn State on Friday night. And boy, Carolyn Juravicius looked really, really good in that game. And Nebraska, I think as much as we say sometimes that you want to go undefeated, and we've asked that question to Tanya Tauke before, and she said, you never want to lose a game. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that they got beat on Friday night.
You never want to lose a game. I'm on her side on this one. It's never a good thing to lose a game.
I just think sometimes it allows you to refocus and you realize that, hey, we have to be really, really good every night to beat these teams.
Yeah, so Pitt was the overall number 1, Nebraska 2, Penn State 3, Louisville 4, which means if the ones hold serve through the opening 4 rounds, it'd be Nebraska Penn State rematch in one side of the Final Four, and then Pitt Louisville on the other side.
All right, we'll talk a lot of Husker football. We'll do the grades. I don't want to do the grade. Well, should we even do the grades? Is it worth doing the grades?
The only grade that matters is the L.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's not do the grades.
We can do them. The bottom line, special teams, F.
Yeah.
Other than that, it doesn't really matter.
I've got them written down, so we might do them, but we will talk Husker football, and we'll do it coming up next.
Today, my new dad and I shot off a rocket in the park.
Today, my new son and I failed to shoot off a rocket.
He knew exactly what to do.
I had no clue what I was doing.
We set up the rocket.
You and the kickoff at all?
Hit ignition.
And then
I thought we might punt it today, but
yeah, works for me. I mean, we already covered the
Sometimes I laugh and I'm frustrated.
Then out of nowhere, the rocket launched into the air.
The rocket did get into the air.
I've never seen anything fly so high.
And then crashed into a kite.
I'm going to play
a couple of in the pond.
I'll never forget that day.
I'll never forget that day, even if I tried.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Opportunity, probably. What's happening?
Breaking news, expert analysis, and the stories that matter most, all in one place.
I totally acknowledge seeing flames is a scary situation.
1499.3 KLIN.
Out here in the middle of all these acres, it can feel like you're the only person on earth.
Forgot to
and
put our
sometimes that's how it feels when you're going through tough times. Stress builds up.
There's no
you have trouble sleeping. Maybe your mind is racing and you just don't feel like yourself. So what do? We get help. Lots of people are struggling with their mental health.
Yes.
It's more common than you think.
Maybe because
the good news is there are people in our community who are here for us when times are tough. Sometimes just talking to someone can make all the difference in the world, so we don't feel so alone.
I think it might
The thing you can do is visit loveyourmindtoday.org.
I don't know.
For simple steps you can take to find the right solution for you. Whether it's hearing stories about what other people are going through, or finding the resources we need to navigate the stresses in our lives. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org.
I'm just going to go take it live.
Institute and the Ad Council.
Here we go.
Wasted a great opportunity to get a win. Great defensive effort for most of the day. Opportunities on offense. Very similar to last year and probably years previous. I found a way to lose the game at the end. So unbelievably disappointing. At the half, we really just kind of said three things. Make sure we keep tackling number two, win the turnover battle, and don't give up a big play on special teams, because we had some close ones in the first half. All three happened, caused us to lose the game. So, disappointed, kind of probably more than disappointed right now, kind of angry about what just happened. Credit to them. Those guys, they've won a long time. They believe they make the plays all the way to the very end, and we got to catch them. We got to catch them, and we haven't caught them yet. So, in terms of finding a way to finish games,
Matt Rule after
Nebraska's
walk-off loss again in Iowa City. How many times have they beaten Nebraska 13-10? It seems like every year with a walk-off kick, and they did it again with Drew Stevens making the 53-yard field goal to end the game after Nebraska was trying to get in position. A fumble by Dylan Raiola late, recovery by Iowa. They moved down the field close enough for the field goal opportunity, and they make it. And they lose once again a one-score game. It happened throughout the Frost era, and now it's happening again in the Matt Rule era. At least they did get to 6, and they will be playing in a bowl game. We'll wait to see what that is, probably Nashville.
Yeah, at least it's not the Pinstripe Bowl. For Nebraska fans,
yeah,
much rather have them head to Nashville, even though they may spend a couple thousand more than they would even in NYC.
Yeah.
But I would not want to have to go up to New York City in the cold and play. Regardless, they made a bowl game. I think at the beginning of the season, everybody said anywhere between 8 and 10 wins is probably realistic. Absolute worst case scenario, if things go completely sideways, 6-6, but they should make a bowl game. Anything less, and we need to talk about maybe we got the wrong coach. Well, they fumbled and bumbled and stumbled their way to 6-6 with just mistake after mistake. And this is one I've always been a proponent of. The coaches are the ones that recruit the players. The coach is the one that teach the players, and the coaches are the one that are responsible when players fail to make plays.
Sure.
But at some point, when the players simply don't make plays, like catching a punt,
or catching a pass that would have sealed it late,
or Isaiah Nayor, you dropped a pass. You got to make that play.
That even if he doesn't score a touchdown, that probably seals the game. They get in field goal range. Who knows if they make it, because they had a bad snap again on a kick, and you can't blame John Hall for that. If that goes through, that's a problem.
You can't have a bad snap. You can't fumble the ball. You can't get strip sacked, Dylan Raiola. Period. Make the play. So the thing that bothered me more than anything in this entire game, I don't care that we lost. I've checked out. What Mitch Sherman, who we'll talk to next hour, in his article from a couple of weeks ago, it says the only thing Nebraska fans have left the ones that are just tired of this, they just move on. I've moved on. I'm done. You guys want to start winning, start playing winning football again, and finish games to where it's fun to watch. That's great. I'll jump back on. I've been a lifelong fan. Don't tell me I'm jumping off the bandwagon, whatever. I'm just done with all what we've seen, including high-pitched beeps.
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I don't know what that is.
Don't know what that was. Anyway, at the end of the day, something's got to change here. Did the satellite kick back in?
The satellite, something may be on. The satellite's on. I don't know what's going on.
Bizarre. Anyway, at the end of the day, the thing that bothered me the most about yesterday's game was before kickoff. You walk through the opposing team's pregame warmup, and then you refuse to shake their hands. I thought it was classless. You talked earlier this season, or go back to last year. Matt Rule made a comment after the Colorado game. I would never disrespect an opponent. Well, your players did. You did by walking through their pregame warmups. I don't get it.
I thought that was inexcusable, and apparently that's happened from what I've been told. I don't know if it's true that they did that before the Ohio State game as well. I've never seen a Nebraska team do that. Matt Rule apparently walked through the warm-up line at Iowa before the game as well. They seem to be looking for a fight, and maybe they felt that they were disrespected last year when Iowa players said, "Hey, have a Merry Christmas." But I just it doesn't matter what the opposing team
talking
does.
A little smack is. I mean, no offense. If you want to be pissed because they're talking smack, maybe don't throw an interception after you just got one. With 20 seconds to go. Maybe don't get walked off the field with the field goal again. Maybe do something on the field to earn people's respect. I don't know. Novel concept.
This is Matt Rule talking about the missed chances yesterday or Friday.
Yeah, we moved the ball right down the field at the start of the first half, and come away with no points. 2nd and 1. We call the over route. I catch that ball and go score. I mean, it's going to be a touchdown. So, there were some opportunities there. Versus a good defense to make the plays to win the game. And even that, that last drive, we drove it all the way down. We had chances, didn't convert. They started playing some 2-man on us, just manning everyone up. Trying to force Dylan to run, and he made one nice run, and punted the ball down. Got the ball back, did everything you're supposed to do, and got the ball knocked out of our hands. We struggled versus their edge rushers today. Pretty much from the first quarter to that last quarter, the 2 edge rushers, really was a matchup we struggled with today.
It was a tough game to watch. It looked like Nebraska
did have control. They went to halftime.
In a game where they scored 10 points at halftime, but Iowa had done nothing. In fact, Iowa for the game had 5 first downs. It's been a while since I've seen a game like that. 5 first downs. I was told that that's the first time a Division I team has won a football game with 5 first downs since like 2003. That's crazy. They did nothing. Caleb Johnson is the best running back in the Big Ten, maybe the second best running back in college football. They shut him down. He got a 72-yard touchdown because Nebraska missed 100 tackles on one play. But other than that, the defense really played well. And even with that play, you got to make the field goal. You got to catch punts. That game was not on the defense. Yes, they had one horrific play that went 72 yards for a touchdown. But Iowa did literally nothing else in the entire game. That defense played really well, but the offense did not help them. But at some point, I agree with you, Mike. Guys are getting paid now in college football.
Yeah.
Go make plays. Go make one play. And that's all of these games is just one guy making a catch, one guy not fumbling, one guy causing a fumble, one guy jumping on that fumble. It turned out Isaiah Castaneda didn't even fumble that. I mean, he didn't have to touch it. and Nebraska would have been fine letting it go. They get the ball back.
And I feel bad. It was Vincent Shavers, right? That barely touched it center.
Yes. And I don't think he touched it first. I thought the Iowa player touched it just a millisecond before he did.
But the way they called it, there's
can't
no
reverse
proof.
it.
Yeah,
you can't reverse it.
They could have if it would have been clear, but you couldn't tell who.
Right.
If they would have had some kind of a weird angle to where
had they called the Iowa player touching it first, then they would have stuck with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for Vincent Shavers because I saw 4 or 5 camera shots of guys going to him, and it's like, dude, you didn't do anything wrong at that point. I mean, it's a full-on scramble drill to go get the football because it appears as though it did touch a Nebraska player. How would he know? It wasn't like he was sitting there watching a slow-mo replay like we all were doing.
Right.
He's out. He sees everybody going for the ball. He's doing his best to make sure I would have made the assumption as well. I think everybody would have that had touched a Nebraska player and he needed to get on.
This is Matt Rule talking about that particular play.
First punt return, they had a big punt return. I think we slowed down because we thought he had made a fair catch signal. But made a nice return. But obviously, the fumble down at the 3-yard line. Unfortunate. The bad snap on the field goal. We kicked field goals pretty early, pretty well. And then the bad snap on the field goal. So those 2 plays hurt us.
He had mentioned somewhere else in the press conference that normally the kick returner will yell poison, to stay away. I didn't touch it. Poison. Don't touch that pill. We're good. But he's not supposed to run up there and then decide not to catch it. I mean, you do one or the other. He had decided to take Ja'Cory Barney out of the game, who was returning punts, for a guy who's more of a possession receiver on the punts, a guy who just basically is your sure hands guy that can fair catch it.
A 6th-year guy versus the true freshman, and in this instance, the 6th-year guy made the freshman mistake.
Right. But he hadn't made that mistake all year long. He'd been very reliable. But that's what Iowa does. I mean, Iowa will drag you into the mud to play their game. And that was, to me, that was a culture game. That was where Iowa's culture beat Nebraska's culture. And Nebraska had more talented players I saw on the field. I mean, Iowa was playing a 15 walk-on guy in Stratton. I mean, that guy, he was okay. He was fine. But outside of Caleb Johnson, they didn't have much else. But that's what Iowa does. They just wait and wait and wait and then wait some more for you to make a mistake. And Nebraska usually obliges. They oblige.
I mean, if I remember right, some of the comments after the game from Iowa players. And the thing is, what I find really interesting is all the disrespect talk that they were throwing out there. And I get it. Like I said, I thought it was, I don't agree with walking through the opposing team's warm-up lines. I don't agree with the lack of a handshake at the coin toss. I mean, show respect for your opponent. If they disrespect you, then you beat them on the field, but you still shake their hand. Yeah. I mean, be above whatever perceived disrespect you got. Don't stoop down to whatever level or go lower.
That was disappointing.
But yeah, 164 yards of total offense to Nebraska's 334. Nebraska has twice as many overall total yards, and they only had penalties. Iowa only had 1 penalty for 15. And turnover battle, 0-2. Nebraska turned it over twice. Iowa didn't. Lack of mistakes versus the mistakes that we always see at critical times. And there you go. So the big question is, what changes are going to happen on this coaching staff? I know who I have on my list that needs to go away. Nothing personal, but there's been a failure across the board on the offensive side of the football.
Well, you have to look at special teams. And
that's been the biggest failure and disappointment.
They had been better
in the 2 years,
late.
too.
They had been better as of late, and mostly because you had John Hall coming in and making kicks, and you had Brian Buschini up until Saturday or up until Friday had played very well and had saved a couple kicks because of his holds. There was no saving on that particular snap. That snap was just so bad that Brian Buschini couldn't do much with it.
I'll be honest. The fact that he even got it down so that John Hall could kick it is amazing.
Yeah. And he's made actually a couple of tackles in the season that saved touchdowns. There was one against Purdue where a kick was blocked and he saved a touchdown via the tackle. But it wasn't just They allowed a return. The punting by Bashini wasn't the best. It's just one of those things that when you play Iowa, they beat you on special teams, and they seem to force you into special teams mistakes. I don't know why that is, but they're the most patient team that I've ever seen in my life playing ugly football. They almost embrace it to the point where the uglier, the better. I mean, when was the last time you saw Iowa play pretty football?
From your next Fox News.
I don't know why that keeps happening. It's driving me freaking crazy. I'm sure it has something to do with us going to me hitting some button that I shouldn't have hit.
I don't know.
But I think we're okay.
Trying to rejoin after basketball and all that.
I
type of stuff
think
with the macros.
that's what happened. We rejoined after basketball. By the way, basketball wins 103-72 over North Florida. Florida improves to 6-1 on the season. They've got Michigan State waiting in the wings next Saturday, and that will be in East Lansing. Nebraska basketball playing good basketball. And Nebraska football, but I told you 6-6, yes, you would have been disappointed with that record because I picked 10. I don't know what you picked going into the season.
I said between 8. I said realistically 8 I thought was a solid, but I could very easily get convinced to go to 10.
Right.
I'm genuinely stunned that it's 6 and how they got to 6 with the same ineptness that we watched for the Scott Frost entire era. And then last year trying to get rid of the bugaboos.
Yeah.
I'm just stunned that they only won 6 games this year.
But at least they
got to 6 for the first time since 2016
that they've gotten to 6. So they are going to a bowl game. Some people are saying Nashville. Maybe it's somewhere else. Nebraska travels really well, and so sometimes they'll base their pick based on that. They want people to attend the game, and Nebraska fans always attend football games. So we'll see where Nebraska lands. But it's heartbreaking to lose to Iowa, your rival. But they did once again. We'll talk more about it. Mitch Sherman in the second hour from The Athletic. Also does a podcast called Locked On, which is really, really good. It's a daily podcast that I watch daily. So we'll have
Hi, I'm Martha Stewart.
talking about that as
Every
well.
year, more than 4 million pets enter shelters here in the United States. My friends at American Humane have been helping animals since 1877.
I don't know
The
what
goal is to ensure that pets have a safe shelter, especially during natural disasters. Adopting a shelter pet allows shelters to help more animals awaiting care. Please consider adopting today and take some time to learn more about American Humane and other work.
Well, it's because of basketball.
I get it.
At the U.S. Center for Safe Sport, we believe athletes are defined by their journey, not the medals they win. And creating a safer stage for all levels of competition is our priority. Join the movement to end abuse at uscenterforsafesport.org.
What do I do now? Hit another one?
Gordon Deal generic.
Introducing the YMCA. What, you already know the why? Or so you think. Sure, you know the why for a swim, a workout, even a game of hoops. But did you know we're more than that? We're a cause.
Doing it,
When you take your jump shot at the why, someone else is getting job training. Take a cardio class.
Like, where's
while
the
kids
intro?
are in an after-school enrichment program.
Here's my question.
Practice your downward-facing dog as a team practices her leadership skills.
Spot 1, 2,
That's
and
the
3.
why. We
Because
work
3
with
doesn't
people
have
no
lots
matter
of-
their age, income, or
Totally.
background, and give them the opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive, all with one simple goal in mind, to strengthen our community. And we've got so much more that does just that. So while you might think of the Y as that place for lifting weights,
I think I did
we're
this.
also about lifting.
I think it should have been 1, 2, and 3.
Introducing the Y. We're so much more than a place. We're a cause. Visit YMCA/more.
I think I fucked up.
Toughness, strength, passion.
That's where I
result.
fucked up.
When your
It should have
team
been 1, 2, and 3.
This is what you expect. And if you've been injured, this is what you get when you work with Friedman Law.
We battle it out in the courtroom with the
I
same
wish they had tape up there or something.
passion for injury
I could
victims.
see them
Friedman
better.
Speaks up against the insurance company and fights hard for the compensation
That's what
you
happened.
deserve. Friedman
1,
Law,
2, and 3.
since 19.
Oh, and that's why the other one was coming
Injured
over.
people. It's what we do. It's all we do.
We know this is your favorite radio station, but if you're feeling a little Christmassy, stop by B107.3. Lincoln's Christmas station. the songs that Santa's singing in the sleigh.
Frosty the Snowman.
When you're ready to celebrate
No,
the
I heard that they used to.
107.3 is Lincoln's Christmas station.
Wrong.
Hi, I'm Jenny Garth.
2 months
I've
ago.
loved and cared for rescue animals since I was a little girl growing up on a farm in Illinois.
Which there were. Like,
My
no,
pets have always been some of the most important members of my family.
Like
My friends at American
It's
have been
hard
helping
to
animals
see
for over
up that
140
far, but I
years.
fucked up. It's me.
Adopting an animal in need can help save a life and add a new member to your family. Since 1981, American Humane has celebrated Adopt a Dog Month each October in an effort to help the estimated 3 to 4 million animals waiting in shelters every year to get the loving, forever home that they deserve.
Yes.
I urge you to consider fostering or adopting a shelter pet and to support the noble mission of American Humane. Together, we can make a significant difference in the lives of these loving creatures. For more information, please check out AmericanHumane.org.
Michigan versus Ohio State.
When students struggle in school because they are hungry
or fall behind because they lack school supplies or clean clothing.
Being greeted at the start of every school day by
Notre
the
Dame
smile of a
USC.
caring adult can make all the difference.
Especially someone from the community.
Someone who knows firsthand the obstacles students might be facing.
And what it will take to help them thrive.
At Communities in Schools, our site coordinators surround students with a community of support and remain by their side
To ensure that they have everything they need to engage in learning
and succeed in school and in life,
access to technology, learning materials.
and even one-to-one mentor support.
We are there for them all day, every day. This is what Communities in Schools is all about.
Going all in for kids, in schools, in communities.
Minnesota, Wisconsin, right? Yep.
To learn more, visit communitiesinschools.org.
And you have Oregon, Washington, UCLA, Fresno, Rutgers, Michigan State, Indiana, Purdue.
Husker Rewind with Tom Stevens and Mike Melby. Two guys old enough to actually remember Nebraska's 5 national titles.
Man, woman, and child did that. Put them in the aisle.
On 1499.3 KLIN.
There's one of our regions.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Husker Rewind. Mike Melby. That's Tom Stevens. Nebraska basketball rolls 372 today to improve to 6-1. Connor Esigian, if you have not heard of the young man, he's pretty good. Today, he wound up going off. Let me bring the box score back up.
Points.
22, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, so he winds up today with 22. And Juwan Gary had 18. Bryce Williams, 17. 13 off the bench for Andrew Morgan. Nebraska with 12 steals in the game against just 2 steals for the Ospreys. And so today, you always look at turnovers and assists and all that type of stuff. Nebraska today had 22 assists, only 6 turnovers, and they had 12 steals. I mean, just unselfish team basketball.
The turnovers excites me.
And then, real quick side note: if you have not heard, Nebraska, the overall number 2 seed in the NCAA women's volleyball tournament.
All right, let's get to the Big Ten Blitz. Running through all
the Big Ten scores. Michigan, the biggest upset of the weekend. They improved to
5 over 10-2. Ohio State probably will still make the college football playoff, but that's 4 in a row for Michigan over Ryan Day. And some are saying if he doesn't win the national championship, he's going to get fired, which sounds crazy to me. I can't see that happening. We'll see. Michigan ran for 173. Khalil Mullins with 116 and a TD, had the big 27-yard run to get him in field goal position to win that game. Then they try to plant the flag, and pepper spray comes out. Ohio State tries to stop the planting of the flag. The fight ensues. The pepper spray is everywhere. It's crazy.
Here's the one question I have. Isn't the horseshoe turf?
I believe it is.
It's a turf field. So, I mean, I get it. And again, you talk. I mean, this was a weekend full of disrespect in college football, and classlessness.
It would take
not
a really
shaking the
strong guy
opposing
to
team's
plant
hand at
the
the
flag, right.
at the thing, and then trying to plant flags in the fields. And Florida State, this happened as well. Florida went and planted the flag at midfield. Mike Norvell's all upset about it. Billy Napier apologized. He said it was classless. He's going to handle it internally. He didn't think it should have been done. I guess the days of TO coach teams and that attitude of act like you've been there before and done that before. Wow.
Yeah, they don't do it if Sharon Moore doesn't approve of it, right? The players don't do that.
Yeah. Well, but in this case,
is that on the coach? Or is that
Florida State, though, Billy Napier didn't encourage it. He didn't promote it or
Right.
support it because after the game, he's like, I'm embarrassed for my program.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it seems like bad sportsmanship is running rampant throughout college football. By the way, who do you think Ohio State would take right now? Kyle McCord or Will Howard?
Kyle McCord.
He's been way better.
Yeah.
Than Will Howard.
Yeah. Interesting what was said by Ryan Day to Kyle McCord to make him want to leave, because I don't think that was a decision he wanted to make. Other Big Ten action, Oregon at number 1 in the country completes the 12-0 undefeated regular season record, 9-0 in the Big Ten Conference, 49-21 winners over Washington yesterday. Huskies are bowl eligible. They're 6-6. Dylan Gabriel said, hey, this is fun. It's kind of addicting, this winning thing. I think I'm going to keep doing it. He goes 16-23 for 209 yards and a couple of scores. Jordan James, 15 carries, 99 yards, and 2 TDs. Oregon up next. Big Ten title game against Penn State.
And speaking of Penn State, they beat Maryland, no problem there. 44-7, a little bit of controversy after
that game. Penn State
adds on a late touchdown. Maryland doesn't like it. But I say if you got your 4 stringers in the game, they're trying to score a touchdown, and you got your 1st stringers in the game, Maryland, hey, just stop them. That's I don't have a problem with Maryland scoring a late touchdown there. They do improve to 11-1, and Maryland now 4-8. Maryland will end their season, and Penn State, as you mentioned, will play Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Drew Aller, nice game. He ran for a TD, threw for a couple of TDs, and Nick Singleton had a nice game with a couple of TDs himself.
I'll jump over Minnesota and Wisconsin. This game on Friday, Minnesota rolls to a 24-7 win, keeps the Badgers from going to a bowl. They're 5-7, first time in 22 years, I believe, that they're not going bowling. I'm sure up in Madison, Luke
Third
Fickle,
longest bowl streak
in America. Yeah, I'm sure Luke Fickle is not exactly everybody's favorite right now in Madison. Max Brosmer, 17 of 26, 191, 2 scores. And Darius Taylor, 32 carries, 143 yards, just hammered the rock all day, did PJ Fleck and his rowboat. And like I said, Minnesota's going bowling. They're 7-5. I did not think they would get there. I thought they'd wind up at best 5-7. So nice job.
It's time to say PJ Fleck, on his birthday, by the way, gets the win, his 44th birthday. It's time to say he's a really, really good coach. And it's been tough for me to admit that, but he is.
I've always thought he was a good coach. I just don't like the antics. But props to him, man. He figured it out, because they were kind of lost after 5 or 6 games this year.
He's a really good football coach. Notre Dame improves to 11-1 with a 49-35 win over 6-6 now USC. It was a good game. USC driving for the tying touchdown, and Jaden Maeva throws a pick 6, and that kind of sealed it for Notre Dame. Notre Dame doesn't really have a quarterback, but they have a really good rushing game. They were able to run the football. They were able to throw it enough. And they're going to be trouble, I think, in the college football playoff for whoever they are lined up against. Remember, they lost to Northern Illinois earlier this year, and now they're going to the college football playoff. They don't have to play in a college conference championship game. I think that's almost a good thing.
Yeah, I would agree.
Day and age.
Yeah.
To not have to play in.
All you got to do is get in, and you don't have 64 minutes of wear and tear on your players' bodies, the potential for injury, etc. I think another team that's going to wind up in the college football playoff, number 10, Indiana. They wrap up the best regular season in program history, most wins. They go 11-1, 8-1 in the Big Ten Conference, and they train wreck. I had to. The Purdue Boilermakers, 66-0. Purdue hangs their hat on the little notch at the top of worst team in college football.
Well, they proved it today too in firing Ryan Walters.
Yeah, that was, I didn't really get the hire a couple of years ago, but he's now gone. He is out. Indiana rolls on. They will be in the college football playoff. Where do you think they wind up? An 8 or a 9 seed, or do you think they're going to be an 11 or?
Well, they're
maybe
the 10th ranked team. I haven't seen the latest rankings, but they'll be. That sounds right. 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
They got blown out by Ohio State last week. They come back with another blowout of their own.
Yeah.
This week, they're a good football coach.
Yeah,
team.
Yeah,
and they've got a great football coach.
Yeah, and Curtis Rourke's a hell of a quarterback. 23 of 31, 349, and 6 touchdowns yesterday.
6 touchdowns. Rutgers improves to 7-5. That's the first time they've done that since 2014. That they've won 7 games. Kyle Monangai always rushes for over 100. He had 129 and a TD. They had Antoine Raymond rushing for 2 TDs. Jay Patel kicked 4 field goals for Rutgers in that game, and they scored on 8 of their 9 possessions, their first 9 possessions. So Rutgers is a solid football team. That's probably Nebraska's best win of the season, right? No, Colorado's Colorado's their best win, although Colorado, I think, is not a great football team. Rutgers is their best conference win for sure.
Yeah. Number 23, Illinois completes a 9-3 regular season. They knock off Northwestern yesterday, 38-28. Luke Altmaier, 10 of 17, only 170 yards. He was picked off a couple of times. Conversely, Northwestern's quarterback, Jack Lausch, 25 of 48 for 287 yards, but he had 2 costly picks in the game. Aiden Laffery, though, is kind of the difference in this ball game. 3 touchdowns, 172 yards rushing on only 12 carries, and an average of 14.3 yards per carry. Northwestern wraps up the season 4-8, and the Illini are going bowling. We'll see where they wind up.
One more for you, UCLA over Fresno. Have we done that one? 20 to 13.
That's all you.
UCLA improves to 5-7. They will not be bowling. Fresno will. They are 6-6. Ethan Garbers had a decent game, 289, 1 TD, and his final attempt went for a touchdown. It was against Fresno, and again, they're not going bowling, but not a bad first year for UCLA, and we'll see where they go
from here. Of course, they beat Nebraska, but they beat Fresno
yesterday, 20 to 13.
All righty. I want to kind of jump over really quick and take a peek at the college football playoff predictor. It's really kind of interesting. They've got it all assigned by percentages. And right now, it's really interesting because Notre Dame's in.
Yeah.
That's pretty much a lock. Oregon's in, Texas in, Penn State in, Georgia. They've got 99%. I don't know if I agree with that anymore. I think they're probably in. But 8 overtimes to knock off Georgia Tech. That I think they're going to drop seeding wise.
Right.
Indiana locked in. Tennessee pretty much locked. Got Ohio State still at like 90+%. And then those last 4 teams, you've got SMU in the mix, Boise State, Iowa State, Arizona State, Clemson, Alabama, UNLV, Miami. Do they fall out of the playoff picture, or do they just fall down to a 12 seed? Going to be really
There's
interesting.
not a great team in college football. I don't think Oregon, even though they're number 1, is the best team in college football.
Who do you think is?
They're the only undefeated team in college football.
Well, I get it, but who do you think is then?
I don't think there is a great team.
No, but
I don't
who
think there is
today?
a best team.
Okay.
I think you put them all in a pot, and whoever. I mean, I really, as I look at college football, and I'm looking at the teams, Oregon 12-0, Texas might be the best team in college football. Penn State is not; they're solid. Notre Dame, no. Georgia 10-2, no. Tennessee 10-2, no. Ohio State, they're proven that they're not great. SMU might be in the college football playoff, by the way, with a win over Clemson on Saturday. Indiana, on a given day, I feel like they could beat anybody. They're 11-1. Alabama, heck, I don't think there's a great team. I mean, Oregon just a couple of weeks ago almost lost to Wisconsin. You can't tell me they're the best team in college football. There is no best team in college football this year. There's no best team.
So I'm going to throw out 1997, Nebraska almost lost to Missouri. I mean, they had a bad week, but Matt Davison with the flea kicker. But they were still the best team in college football that year, no matter what Michigan says. I don't know. I don't know that I necessarily think that Oregon is better than Texas. I think those two ultimately wind up playing for the national championship. I think they're the two best. Who's better? I don't know. We'll see. We'll put them on the field and find out. But
will there be a Big 10 team or a Big 12 team in the college football playoff? There's got to be one, right? But who is it?
Possibly Arizona State.
Yeah, we'll see. Who do they have? Iowa State on Saturday.
Yeah. And I mean, and from that standpoint, I mean, Iowa State and Arizona State, they'll be in. The winner is in, regardless.
Yeah.
But do they get a second? I don't know. You've got Iowa State at 10-2, Arizona State at 10-2. Is a 10-3 Big 12 team better than a 3-loss Alabama team?
In some ways, I thought the 12-team playoff would make it better, and maybe it will. But right now, I'm looking at the 12 teams. I guess the thing about, picking a 4-team playoff or a 2-team, championship game, whatever you're doing, it's always hard. And the more teams you add, it seems like it would be easy. But then you always look at all the teams that, hey, that team's as good as that team, and that team should be in over that team, and Alabama shouldn't be in because they have 3 losses, but they might get in. It's just, I just thought 12 teams and maybe 16 teams would solve all our problems in college football. I don't think it has.
Well, I think it will. It'll be more fun. I mean, and bottom line, I think the winner of UNLV Boise winds up in the college football playoff. So, you got Clemson, SMU for the ACC. Obviously, Penn State, Oregon, Big Ten. The Georgia-Texas game. Let me ask you this: Georgia wins in 8 overtimes. Granted, it's their bitter rival in Georgia Tech, but if Texas knocks off Georgia, is Georgia a lock to be in the college football playoff? Does a loss in the SEC title game put them on the outside looking in?
I don't know is my answer, because I'm just confused. Because I look at all the 2-loss teams, and a 3-loss team is getting in, right?
They have to. That's the whole thing. Like they literally have to. There's no way around it, because I don't know that there's enough teams that only have 2 losses or fewer.
Yeah. Well, you have one undefeated team in college football again, Oregon.
And I don't think Oregon's a great football team.
As I look at it, and if I have to pick the best team in college football, it might be Texas. It might be Texas right now.
Like I said, I can hear that argument all day long, and same with Oregon. I thought Ohio State was the best team in the country up until this last weekend. I'll tell you what, there is a lot of smoke right now coming out of Columbus.
Have you seen some of the videos? The fans calling it the saddest day of their lives because they lost to Michigan for the 4th straight time. Like, it reminded me of some of those years where Nebraska just couldn't get by Oklahoma, and they would bring in some teams that obviously Nebraska was better than, and Barry Switzer would find a way to beat Nebraska. Usually he had the more talented teams, but sometimes Nebraska would have the better team, and they still couldn't get by Oklahoma. Finally, I think it was the sixth try in 1978, Tom Osborne finally broke through and beat Oklahoma, probably with Barry Switzer's best team. It took 9 fumbles, I believe. 6 were recovered by Nebraska. But it just feels like one of those years where I just don't know in college football who's great. I just don't know who's great.
The one thing that I think we're going to wind up with the 12-team playoff, we are going to wind up with fantastic football games. I mean, if you're a college football fan, enjoy, sit back, relax. This is going to be a blast, because I think that one of the top 4 seeds that's getting a first-round bye, I think they go down in that opening weekend or what would be the second weekend of the playoffs.
As a Nebraska fan, I care about the bowl game, and I want them to go to Nashville or somewhere else. And I think that a big Nebraska fan contingent will show up. Do you think anybody else in college football cares about the bowl games anymore, especially going to 12?
The fan bases of those that are there, yes, but college football fans. The one thing, the argument I always heard was, if you make the 12-team playoff, then no one is going to care about the bowls. I totally disagree. There are way too many people out there that just flat out absolutely love football. They're going to tune in and watch. The bowl games have never been about packing stadiums. It's about sponsorship dollars and everything else that goes around.
But wasn't it Florida State playing Georgia last year? I can't remember who they got blown out because all of their players decided after one loss that, hey, we're not in the college football playoffs, so we're going to go to the NFL and do our thing. Why do we care about playing so if a bunch of guys, if you have these bowl games where 17 guys opt out again, I'm not sure the viewership will be great.
Florida State also had their best player that they played without, which is why they didn't make the 4-team playoff, is because the committee said, well, no offense, but your best player that's like 10 times better than anybody else on your roster, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, he's out for the year. Therefore, that's why you're not getting in.
Right.
You know, and this goes back to
I think McCaffrey was the first. Christian McCaffrey was one of the very first to opt out in the modern era. And then he got a lot of criticism for that. And then other guys decided to do it. And more guys have decided to opt out. And now it's just the thing. If I'm going to be a first or second or maybe even a third round draft pick, why do I want to play in your stupid Peach Bowl or whatever? If you're a Nebraska guy, not going to get drafted. Sure, I'm all in. But, Tommy Hill opted out before last week's game.
Essentially.
And thinking that maybe he was a guy that's going to get drafted in the top 3 rounds. I don't know what he was thinking necessarily, but he was injured anyway. But had he been healthy, would he play in Nashville or wherever Nebraska decides to go? If he knew we were a first-round draft pick. In some ways, I can support that. I mean, I understand where players are coming from. I think it's just the way of the new world. And maybe if you go to a 2014 playoff, there'll be less of that. Or maybe if you're just like Nebraska and you're just trying to build a program, there'll be less of that. I don't know. I
want to see how 12 works out. I personally don't want to see it get any bigger for several more years. I want to see what it looks like going through with 12 and the first round buys for the top 4 seeds and see how it all plays out. But it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks.
We'll talk to Mitch Sherman of The Athletic coming up. I do want to get to one more bite here from Matt Rule after the game, talking about getting better.
No, we just got to get better. Honestly, at the end of the day, like they won the one-on-one matchup. Like they turned the corner and beat us. I mean, we just gotta get better. It's 5 minutes left, whatever it was. Dana calls 2nd and 1. I'm used to running the ball there. He calls a play action pass. We drop it. We just gotta get better. I mean, I'm not. It's not like we're not doing the right things. We had some opportunities even in that 2-minute drill. But when you get into those situations, really who wins, the offensive line or the defensive line, that determines the game, right? And so for us, our defensive line, they had the ball in the 2-minute drill. Our defensive line won, but the difference was they caused a sack fumble, right? And so we put the ball on the ground 3 times in the 4th quarter. Emmett put 1 down. We got on it. Dylan put 2 down. So, we've got to just get better and be able to just stone those guys, right, and make the play to win the game.
There's a guy who seems pretty sad right now, and maybe I'm sure it's going to carry on for a while. I mean, I think he really thought that Nebraska was going to break through and beat Iowa. I felt it at halftime. And then they come out in the 3rd quarter. They drive right down the field. They're about to kick a field goal. If they kick a field goal, the way that game was going with Iowa not being able to move the football at all, I felt like that would kind of been the nail in the coffin. It felt like it would have been. But Nebraska just needs to get better.
What he just said.
You can say it's coaching. Yes, it is coaching. You can say it's players not making plays. Yes, it is. But if they had receivers that consistently got open and running backs who consistently made big plays and linemen who consistently protected, that's probably a 24-0 game at halftime, not 10-0. Nebraska needs to get better on the field. They also need to get better playmakers. I'm sorry.
They need to get better coaches, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, I think that's happening. I think Dana Holgorsen is your offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and I think I'll be honest with you. The wrinkles that he threw out there, and what he brought was fantastic. And I'm all on board if he winds up being the OC next year. I think it's a great move. But other than that, I mean, you keep Donovan Raiola because you want to make sure Dylan and his brother, stay in school and come to school. That's fine. I thought the offensive line was the best part of the offense. But as far as tight ends go, quarterback play goes, and I'm talking coaching wise, running backs, receivers, awful. Special teams, awful.
Well, we'll ask some of these questions to our friend Mitch Sherman of the Athletic and Locked On Nebraska. What changes do you expect from Nebraska on the coaching staff? And
if any.
If any. Maybe they won't make any
very
changes.
Loyal. So
Mitch Sherman coming up next.
Keep your home safe and protected and save big money at Menards. Secure your home in an instant with a socket security camera from Energizer. Perfect for indoor and outdoor spaces. Simply screw it into a standard socket, and if any movement is detected, an instant alert is sent to your phone. Plus, you can access your camera at any time with the Energizer Connect app. Pick one up today for $19.99 at Menards. Sale price good through December 8th.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated in the best hearing aids of 2024 by USA Today, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, just $189.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids.
Join over 500,000 happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com. Don't miss out on Black Friday sales, live now through November 30th.
Oh, honey, just put that down there.
Tom Stevens.
Okay. So
Good.
we're going to move here tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh,
On in a couple minutes.
go straight in the truck.
What about the 16th century Rossellini sculpture?
You want to take it?
Toss it in the box. It'll be fine. Whoops. But that priceless painting, the movers can just carry out. I don't think we have to cover it. And the sideboard from your grandma, we'll just strap it to the roof of the car.
Okay.
You need the right protection for priceless things when moving. And when your precious children are in the car, they need the right protection too. If they're too big for a car, custom needs are the right size for an adult safety belt. If they're under 4'9", they need a booster seat. It raises them up so the safety belt fits properly. And the right fit makes all the difference to their future. To learn more, visit www.boosterseat.gov.
New specialties.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Ad Council.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also
compares it to opening a new store or Walmart in another city.
To meet me halfway.
You just need people to get the thing started, and then you make your changes. You realize what you have. He's super.
We have our own journey, and feel that journey at the same time.
If you're loyal to a fault to the point where you're going to ignore.
AARP.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All good.
Husker Rewind with Tom and Mike Melby. Combined 60 years of broadcasting experience.
I wish we had a tape up here.
Really old.
They're going to make him do this till he's 90.
Here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
Welcome back to Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Melby. Mr. Tom Stevens, the legend, sitting across from me.
In my home.
Let's jump on the Hunt Irrigation Talk and text line from the Athletic, Mr. Mitch Sherman. Mitch, how are you on this fourth day of Thanksgiving weekend?
I'm ready to go into like detox mode. I mean, from the food mainly. It's the last hours before tomorrow is like eating vegetables.
You know what's funny is the right before I came down here, it was cauliflower. I'm like, I've had enough turkey, I've had enough potatoes and ham. Yeah, I was eating cauliflower.
Oh, I ate it for 10 days in a row.
Good.
That
Mitch,
won't be my choice, but I can go with carrots and celery, and I just need to get away from the pizza leftovers and all of the Thanksgiving stuff. But it was a festive weekend, minus for a few hours on Friday night when it was intense watching football.
Yeah, let's talk about that. First of all, I want to commend you on an article a couple of weeks ago where essentially the last line was, for some Husker fans, the only thing left to do is move on. I thought it was very well written. I thought it was like speaking from the heart of so many diehard, live and die fans of Nebraska football, myself being one. And that's kind of where I was at. And I read your article and that last line, and it just kind of hit me. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm there. Until I see some substantial improvements, consistency, all of that. I'm still a fan. I still want them to win, but at the end of the day, I've kind of moved on. Talk to me a little bit about that, and then with what happened on Friday.
Well, Nebraska has to be wary of that. You can't have a bunch of casual football fans running around and continue to support the program internally with external resources in the way that Nebraska has grown accustomed to. It needs to have a passionate fan base. It's already a smaller fan base in comparison to the elite programs nationally. If you're talking top 15 programs nationally, blue blood programs, Nebraska just because of the numbers in the state and it's not Ohio State, it's not Texas, it's not Alabama, it's not the University of Florida, LSU. I mean, I could go on, Michigan. It has a lot of fans, but you have to compare Nebraska to the programs that it wants to compete with on a national and conference level. And because Nebraska's in the situation that it is, it needs the fans who are there to be supportive and passionate and want to do more, feel compelled to do more than watch and hope that the Huskers win. They need to be involved. And I do think there's a lot of fans at this moment. Maybe the Wisconsin game got them to buy back in, but still it's 6-6 right now. And when I wrote that, Nebraska looked like it was perhaps headed toward another December at home. And at least they have that chip to play. The fans can certainly feel good about the fact that Nebraska is going to a bowl game. I think that has lifted spirits quite a bit. But, in the context of Friday night, it was another case where the team made fans hope, made fans feel good for a while, and then reminded the fans in the same 2-hour stretch or 1-hour stretch that, oh yeah, they still have not figured out a lot of their problems and are capable of losing games in ways that are in incredibly frustrating and seemingly on repeat from previous seasons. So much so that the game against Iowa this year was almost a carbon copy. And in fact, in the final minute, it was a carbon copy of a year ago. A turnover in the last 30 seconds, then a walk-off field goal for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, it is a movie. It's Groundhog Day. We do this over and over and over, and maybe it doesn't. The game doesn't play out the same way, but it ends. It seems like seemingly in the same way, and you could feel the frustration from Matt Rule. Do you think he rethinks about maybe some of the stuff about what he had in mind to build the program? Because I think he thought the walk-on program, development. And now you're going to a 105-man roster. Does he think more with the portal? How's he mix and match with development versus the portal versus, NIL, you think, going forward?
Well, in some sense, this roster reduction, while he does not want to have to trim the roster in the way, and trim isn't even the right word, just they're gonna have to hack the roster pretty in a pretty significant way. He doesn't want to have to do that, but this comes at a moment for him where if you're going to have something seismic like that happen, this is probably the time, because he has to make, I think even if this 105-man limit was not coming in as it is in 2025, Matt Rule would be at a crossroads where he would have to evaluate the decisions that he made about roster management and development and weighing the balance between recruiting players out of high school, how many you get from the portal, all of the things that he talked about that are at the foundation of how he built a program. I'm not saying it would have required wholesale change, but there would have needed to be some adjustments. And now he's forced to make adjustments. Any coach who has a large roster is forced to make adjustments now in the way that they put things together. So at least he can tackle both of those challenges at once. And maybe it can be a more smooth process than if he was only faced with the realization in front of him that not all was working and that 5 and 7 and 6 and 5 were not getting off. It was not representative of getting off the ground with the speed that was needed. So there's an opportunity here to pivot, do some things differently. He's still going to be a coach that leans on loyalty and development, but you can change somewhat, and you can do it in the mold of trimming the roster and getting to 105. It's going to be a painful offseason in a lot of ways, I think, for Nebraska and in that locker room to get to the point they need to be in August, but they'll make it. And it's a big moment. It's a big next, there's a bowl game, but it's a big next 9 months, 7, 8, 9 months for Matt Rule.
Joining us on the Hunt Irrigation Talk and Text line from The Athletic, it is Mr. Mitch Sherman. Mitch, obviously, from what you just said, expecting some pretty wholesale changes with the roster. How about the coaching staff? We all kind of, from what we saw from Dana Holgorsen over the 3 games, I think fans, et cetera, would be excited if he came back as the offensive coordinator. But there are some glaring areas that it just, to me, I think there needs to be changes made. Do you think there will be?
I do. I think both changes as a result of coaches who perhaps want to advance their careers, and then also changes from the standpoint of this area needs to get better. Again, we're talking about a time in college football when things are different than even 12 months ago, and he doesn't necessarily have to fire coaches because your staffs are unlimited at this point. And if he needs to make a change to a coordinator, if he needs to make a change at a position coach, he can keep those assistants on staff. Now, do they want to stay? Like if they're going to, if it's Marcus Satterfield, that's already happened. He's not going to be the offensive coordinator no matter what happens with Dana Holgorsen. He's currently on staff as the tight ends coach. He's signed through next year. Does he stay, or do they work something out where he leaves and there's some kind of a settlement, salary settlement? I don't know. The salary stuff is somewhat secondary, I think, to most fans. They just want to know who the coaches are going to be. And it starts there with the offensive coordinator. That's a big decision that Dana Holgorsen has to make. The door is there. I think the offer is either there or will be there very soon, very early this week, for him to sign with Nebraska on a multi-year deal. So let's see what he says. I don't think that he has done, he's impressed a lot of people in Nebraska. He's made Nebraska people happy. I think he's made Nebraska people want him to be the offensive coordinator moving forward for Nebraska. He's been here for 3 games, and I don't know that he's made people sit up nationally and take notice of everything that's happened, which can play in Nebraska's favor. I don't think there's going to be a line outside of his office door, figuratively, with head coaching offers that are waiting. Maybe a year from now, if he can turn the Nebraska offense into a top 30 group, a top 6 group, top third of the Big Ten, then absolutely he puts himself back on the radar as a hot coaching candidate. I don't know if he's there now, and we'll find out based on, well, maybe we won't find out, but we'll find out what he wants to do, and I think we'll get an answer on that one pretty soon.
Mitch, what's your take on handshake gate? Apparently Nebraska captains refused to shake hands with the Iowa captains before the game, and Matt Rule's been accused of walking through the warm-ups of Iowa before the game. What do you make of all that?
Yeah, the second part of it, I don't know. We haven't seen any video of that beyond Matt Rule walking around the field, and so I can't comment on that. I don't know what happened. We hear Jay Higgins, the Iowa linebacker, talk about Rule walking through their warm-ups, and whether that happened or not is something to ask about. The handshake, look, I think it's important to look at it in the context of all that's gone on in this Iowa-Nebraska series for the last 10 years. and started with Nebraska. It started with Nebraska fanning the flames and firing a coach because he didn't want to take Iowa into consideration, didn't consider Iowa to be a serious barometer. Talking about Sean Eichhorst, and then Iowa in turn gloated and goaded Nebraska into feeling angry about this series. We saw multiple instances of celebrating in Nebraska's space, of doing things that are all, you can say all in good fun, but I don't think you can do all that and expect that there's going to be no response. When it went all the way up to Friday when Iowa guarded the logo at midfield. So there's a lot of history there. There's a lot that I think you have to take into account before you just say, well, this is terrible that they refused to shake hands. I think it was a moment of solidarity for Nebraska. I don't have an issue with it. I certainly don't have an issue with it when I watch what happened in rivalry games on Saturday in college football. I mean, you can stand back on your high horse and talk about, whatever, sports and setting an example and being upstanding men and taking the high road. And you should always shake hands. But, Nebraska didn't do anything all that unsportsmanlike in that game. There were no personal fouls. It was a clean football game. There weren't late hits. There were no fights after the game. It's a small thing to me in the big picture. And the thing that I have most of an issue with, I suppose I would say, is that Iowa seems to act like it's on some higher ground than Nebraska. That was the vibe that I got from Iowa after the game and seeing the video and hearing multiple players interviewed. This is a two-way street. This disrespect goes two ways. And it hasn't gotten to a place like Michigan, Ohio State. And that's probably good because we don't need fights on the field. If it's refusing to shake hands pregame, whatever. I think we can move past that. I don't think Nebraska has to do that. But if they want to have these little moments to help get them motivated or whatever, or show Iowa that there's a level of dislike there, then you know what? I'm fine with it.
Hey, big fan of your writing and stuff you do at The Athletic, and of course the Locked On podcast with Connor Happer, my former co-host. So good stuff, great stuff. We hope to have you back at some point.
All right, thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, there you go.
Thanks, Mitch
Sherman of The Athletic. Always fun to talk to Mitch. Great writer at The Athletic, and his Locked On podcast is very good. If you haven't checked it out, do it. We have our picks of density coming up in just a few minutes. Do you have the update on how I'm doing? Did I do anything?
You were 4-3 last week. A lot better than I was. I was 2-5.
I think I got Nebraska.
Iowa.
You did?
I picked Nebraska. Was it 3.5? And I picked them.
Yep. And you took Nebraska in the points.
It's amazing how Vegas does that, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you win, it seems like you barely win. You barely win. But I'll take it. 4-3 is a good week for me because I don't think it's a winning record so far this season.
35-41-1.
Ooh, not good.
So you're 6 games under 500, and I'm 3. I'm 40-43-1. So
all right. Our picks of density coming up.
Toughness, strength, passion, result. When your team takes the field, this is what you expect. And if you've been injured, this is what you get when you work with Friedman Law.
We battle it out in the courtroom with the same toughness, strength, and passion for injured victims. Friedman Law suits up against the insurance company and fights hard.
Has it always been in?
Friedman Law, since 1962, helping injured people. It's what we do. It's all we do.
We need to find out from...
William is one of millions of Americans who uses GoodRx to save on the cost of their prescriptions.
My oldest daughter, Camilla, 2 days old, she had to have open heart surgery. All of a sudden, she's on 5 different medications. It adds up at the end of the month. Me and the pharmacist got so tight. She said, GoodRx save you a lot of money. Save that extra $200-300 a month. We're able to do all these extra activities. So it puts less stress on our household, and it puts less stress on our pockets.
Download the free app or visit GoodRx.com and start saving today. GoodRx user compensated for the time. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance.
The Cleveland-Pittsburgh game, and the game was, I don't know what's going on. I know everything's
I'm
up.
Naheem Hines, professional football player and proud supporter of the Muscular Dystrophy Association. My mom was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when I was 14, and I watched her struggle. But MDA helped her get the best treatments and care, and they also help kids like my buddy Ethan.
My name is Ethan, and I'm 12 years old. Thanks to the Muscular Dystrophy Association and people like you, I have more hope than ever before. From day one, they've treated me like family at my local care center. MDA is the only one that funds over 150 care centers across the U.S. to help provide state-of-the-art care for
Do I have to
adults
fire
and
something after this?
For over 70 years, MDA has been transforming the lives of people living with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and other related neuromuscular. They fund the research for breakthrough treatments, care, and cures. And MDA provides support to thousands of families like mine and Ethan's in communities like yours. Thanks to MDA, kids and adults can live life to its fullest. Join us and learn more at mda.org today.
I just played the bet on my own.
Welcome back, Husker Rewind. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, every Sunday, 5 to 7. Been a fun show. Andy Markowski, former Husker basketball star, in hour number 1, following Nebraska's 103-72 win over North Florida. And then Mitch Sherman of The Athletic talking about Nebraska's heartbreaking. It's appropriate that it's on Black Friday because it feels like Black Friday every single year as a Husker fan. And this one, probably worse than ever. I mean, those other walk-offs, they happened, and Nebraska had a chance to win those games as well. But I really bought in this year. I remember one year, I think it was 3 years ago, Nebraska was up 10 or 14 against Iowa, and my wife was at the game. She called me because I can't go to the games anymore. She said, Nebraska's about to win. They're going to beat Iowa. And I go, Heidi, I've seen this movie before. And right at that moment, block punt, Iowa scores a touchdown. They're right back at it. The momentum completely changed. They win the game. And it's just, but they've won 9 of the last 10. Yeah. Has it, Iowa? 9 of the last 10.
Yeah, and Fred was the worst. Flat out. I mean, you win and lose the game at the line of scrimmage. And Iowa got their butts handed to them at the line of scrimmage every single play of that game. Like they just
5 first downs. That's unheard of.
And somehow, some way, they found a way to lose. Real quick, want to do the injury report brought to you by Friedman Law for the Huskers on the basketball side. Jawan Gary back in action today, wound up with 18 points after going out in their prior game when he got elbowed just below the right eye. Had a nice little goose egg there. That thing healed up okay. However, Burke Buchtengel is out with a groin strain. It sounds like, according to Coach Hoiberg, that starting tomorrow he'll get back and start doing a little bit of work, and they're hopeful that it will be a short-term injury. No exact timetable is yet been out there. So big thanks to Friedman Law for sponsoring the injury report.
We thank them. NFL scores. Big comeback today. They win 22. The Cardinals, they're 10-2. Colts beat the Pats. It was the Steelers over the Bengals, Chargers over the Falcons. Seattle Seahawks beat the Jets 26-21. It was the Texans beating the Jaguars. Commanders 42-19 over the Titans. You had the Buccaneers over the Panthers. Rams beat the Saints. Also, Eagles over the Ravens 2019. And the Bills and Niners play tonight. And it's time for our picks of density.
It's time now for the picks of density.
Cause it's a pick of destiny.
Wait a minute. It says density on here.
On your density.
Oh, I get it. Because your picks carry a lot of weight, right?
Ah, man. That's so heavy.
All right, let's roll with it. The picks of density.
All righty. As we talked about a little while ago, 3 last week, including picking Nebraska, taking the points. They did cover from when the line was posted when we made our picks last week at 3.5. And I went 2-5, so not a great week for me. Let's start with tonight's Sunday night football game. 49ers at the Bills. Bills are favored by 6.5.
I like the Bills to win the game, but it seems like every game
in the NFL is close.
The 49ers is Purdy playing tonight? I thought he was questionable going into this game.
I believe he is going to play. I know the schedule was for him to play.
I just think the Bills at home. It's probably going to be a cold weather game tonight. There's San Francisco. They're used to warm weather. I don't think they're going to be able to play in the cold tonight. I'm assuming it's going to be cold. I'll take the Bills. No, actually, I take the 49ers because I just don't think they'll cover the 6.5. I'll take the 49ers there.
Okay. I'm going to take the Bills. I think they roll with or without Brock Purdy, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think they win. I just
don't think 6.5 is a big spread.
I think they win by 7.
Okay.
That half point.
All right.
Again. Browns at the Broncos. Monday Night Football tomorrow. Denver is favored by 6.
Browns are coming off that big win over Pittsburgh last week. I was supposed to go to that game. I didn't end up making it. Our flight got canceled. But we left out of Omaha last week, and there's some problem with oxygen in the cabin. And you probably want to have oxygen when you're flying.
That's a bad thing.
When they said that, I was like, okay, I'm not flying. So our flight never happened, so we didn't go to that game. Nonetheless, the Broncos are playing pretty good football. The Browns have not played well despite that win over Pittsburgh. I like the Broncos and the 6. Give me the Broncos.
All righty. I'm going to take the 6. We'll see if the little bit of momentum from last week carries over for the Browns. Let's talk championship games in college football. Big 12, Iowa State versus Arizona State. That sounds so weird to say. Arizona State is actually favored by 2.5.
I'm a little surprised, but I know they had a good year. Iowa State just finds ways to win, it seems like, every single week. Beat Kansas State this weekend, and I think they're going to beat Arizona State this coming weekend.
So on the money line.
Yeah, I like Iowa State and the points.
I like Arizona State. I just think there's something about them this year. And give me Arizona State. I'll give you the 2.5 points. SEC, Georgia, Texas. Longhorns favored by 2.5.
I think Texas might be the best team in college football. Georgia's had an off year. But with a win, I think they're in the college football playoff, right?
Well, that's what I mean. They're sitting there right now. Are they out with a loss? That's going to be the big question.
They're out with a loss. They're out with a loss. Texas is in regardless, right?
Yeah.
Two losses. Texas is in regardless. They're playing pretty good football. They had a big lead, kind of let Texas A&M back in this weekend. But I like Texas minus 2.5.
All righty. I do as well. Penn State, Oregon for the Big Ten Conference title. Oregon, 3.5 point favorites.
I know they played well this weekend, and their win over Washington kind of blew out Washington. I don't think they're a great football team. They could have gotten beat. I think it was Boise early in the year.
Yep.
Wisconsin had a chance. They had them on the ropes. As I mentioned, I don't think there's a great team in college football. I don't know who it would be if there is a great team in college football. Oregon's number 1. But I like Penn State to win this outright.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think Penn State wins the game.
I like Oregon to win this, and I like Oregon to win this big. I think this is a 2-touchdown plus game. I have not been sold on Penn State all season long. I don't think James Franklin is that good of a coach, and I get it, but I think that I think Oregon rolls in this one. Clemson versus SMU, ACC type.
Sounds really weird to say that.
I know
SMU favored. They're first year
in
the ACC.
Playing great football, by the way.
Yeah. SMU favored by 2.5.
I like SMU to win this football game. I think they win. If Clemson wins, they're in the college football playoff, maybe.
Yeah. We'll have to see. We'll have to see.
I just don't know how they figure out this mess.
It'll be fun to watch. Yeah. We don't have to figure it out. We get to watch as other people do. I'm going to take SMU in this one as well. And that is more, I don't like Dabo Swinney anymore. I always thought he was a hell of a coach, and his whining and crying about the way college football is and the transfer portal and NIL and how unfair and blah, blah. Dude, it's the way it is. No one cares about your opinion. If you don't want to play by the rules, then or participate in all of it like you don't seem to want to do, that's fine. He's not one that seems to embrace change, and I don't like that. So I like this one. And then the Mountain West Conference game winner more than likely is in the college football playoff. UNLV versus Boise. Boise favored by 4.
I'm a big fan of Ashton GT. I think he's the best running back in college football, and most people think that as well. I think they win the game, and I think they cover. I think the 4. I'll take Boise and the 4.
I'm going to take UNLV, and I'm going to take them on the money line. It's one of those. I like what they've done this year, especially the fact after essentially the NIL deal fell through with their quarterback and quit after 3 or 4 games this year, and they didn't really skip a beat, and that's coaching. And that's culture. And, you got a guy that was blown out of an SEC school a couple of years ago that's now hopefully going to wind up winning this thing and go into the college football playoff. And I'll take UNLV.
We were talking about volleyball
to open the show. We didn't really talk a lot about it, but Nebraska, of course.
On Friday night, they lose to Penn State. Then they win on Saturday night, back to back for the first time in a while. They win Saturday night last night against a bad Maryland volleyball team, but first back-to-back Big Ten championships ever for Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, they've only been in the league for 12 years, but still, it's a hefty accomplishment because there's, I don't know, 9 teams that are perennial like powerhouses in volleyball every year in the league. So props to them. And it's really interesting because they are so good defensively, and defense wins championships. And bottom line is they're 6 wins away from, the first of 3 that Harper Murray said, you know what? My belief in myself and my team is that we're going to win the next 3. Obviously, problems from all of that with the keyboard warriors out there, and she's come back better than ever, and corrected everything that she had going sideways in her life. And this team is just
she could
so
be,
talented.
if you wanted to say she could come back player of the year this year, I'd have no problem with that.
Based on the offseason,
even though she had a great freshman year, but in what she faced as far as personal controversy, it's been impressive the way she's come back from.
Yeah, and let's face it, if the Huskers wind up going through and winning the Natty this year, I'm guessing she's not going to make any bold proclamations, but at the same time, kind of sweet that her and her teammates back up that. And that's the whole thing. It was the passion. It was the belief in herself and her teammates and the coaching staff. And that's not the way some people took it. It's fine.
But their defense is so good. Obviously, Lexi Rodriguez is my favorite player and has been for a while. And she's obviously going to be on an Olympic team at some point. But they had 16 blocks, which was pretty impressive on Friday night against Penn State in a loss. And then they come back with 20 blocks last night.
Yeah.
I think that's a record for a while. I mean, they haven't done that for a long time. So that was really impressive. The way they play defense. They never let the ball hit the floor, in part because of Olivia Mock, who's really becoming one of my favorite players very quickly. John Cook said she was so good we couldn't redshirt her. We wanted to redshirt her, but we couldn't. Of course, maybe they learned their lesson with Caroline Giravicius the year previous to that. But she's really turned out to be a great defensive player. You had Lexi and just the block with that. They're the best defensive team in college volleyball. If they can figure it out completely on the offensive side, and they are
definitely better offensively this year than they were last year.
They're going to win a national championship.
Yeah, that's kind of the expectation, I think, in that program from day one this season. It's what I know I am fully expecting them to do, and it's time for them to put on a show and for all of us to just be amazed at the chemistry and the sisterhood and the teamwork that they put forth over the next several weeks.
Nebraska basketball put on a show today, 103-72 over in North Florida. I was watching it at a bar before our show down the road, and I'm surprised how many people weren't watching it. I mean, get on board, kids. Nebraska basketball is really good. And we'll talk about them after next week's Michigan game, Michigan State.
Peter Herrick was a 34-year-old carpenter.
Sorry about that. Bad joke for me.
His wife, Diana.
They were deployed to build schools and bases and to assist the Marines.
The mortar round hit, I was completely